Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick and welcome to Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening Woman. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. Who is the awakening woman? She is a woman seeking a greater possibility in her reality and looking for solutions. She knows being awakened is not a lofty ideal, but a necessity. If she can transform herself, she can change the world. Her conversations will introduce you to talented women who will speak to your spirituality, sensuality, soul. They share their stories and explain how they are in service to the world. So let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. Artist Aquara Soma joins me for this week, Her Conversations, for a fascinating insight into the real life of an artist. She experienced international success in the art world in her early 20s. Then after marrying and becoming a mother, there followed many years when she barely created, but eventually the desire to paint returned. Now she's back to gifting the world with her exquisite work, has recently opened an art gallery and also guides others to discover and express their creativity. During our conversation, Aquara talks about how developing confidence in your work will make you impervious to the opinions of others, the connection artistry has with being seen and making a mark in the world, and the simple and inexpensive ways anyone with artistic aspirations can get started. We also touch on art and activism. But before we get into all that, I begin by asking all of my guests, Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel at your most her?
For me, it's definitely in those moments of when my paintbrush is touching the canvas and I have let go of where I think the painting is going, and there's just that kind of moment of in between where there's like a real deep listening to the movement of life and me and the paintbrush and the canvas. That's where I feel something that I cannot describe, really, and it's something that is of the highest. And I think the only other place I really feel that is when I'm sitting still in nature, watching nature, or I'm listening to the wind, or I'm watching the ocean. So that's the kind of like where I'm at my highest. Those are the two places.
Just how did you get to the point where art was your life? Like, there's so many people who dream of being artists and working fully in art. How did you get to the point where you just embraced it and you were not swayed by the fact that it was something that most people dream of or do as a hobby?
I think when I was 4, I just knew. I just knew from very, very early on that was my dream. That was what I wanted. And I just knew with all of me that that's why I was here. I can't quite explain it. It was, my parents were aware of it, and my whole life just kind of just kept like affirming it. So I had like incredible art teacher at primary school, and then I went to junior school, and I had an incredible art teacher that mentored me at junior school, and then I went to secondary school, and my art teacher was taught by David Hockney, and then and then I went on to my degree, and my tutor there was an incredible mentor and was right in the middle of the London art scene and knew everyone, and the international art scene. So it's like it never turned off. It was, constantly just living and breathing it, really.
That's perfect. And so how would you explain, or how would you kind of explain your creative process and using your art as a way of expression? And the style that you've kind of evolved into over the years. How did you find that? How did you start to have confidence in that?
I think my my junior school teacher was really instrumental. She was she taught me sort of the classical fine arts. So she taught me anything from life drawing to portraiture drawing, and she taught me crafts. So she taught me how to bookbind, how to make your own book, how to print different things, and how to do flower pressing. She taught me watercolors. I mean, she taught me, the technical skills of fine art. I mean, I was very young, and she just kind of took me under her wing, and so I was, you're talking 7 or 8 years old, being taught classical fine art. And then I was just fascinated in art history. So I would just bring things home from school, books or different images, and I would try to replicate them. And I just then started to draw. I had a fascination for barn owls, so I'd be drawing owls and feathers, and then I'd kind of explore kind of portraiture work, and then I had a fascination with trees, and I became very adept at being able to draw really structured detail, like for like drawing. And then I wasn't really aware at that age of drawing for a place of feeling. It was more like a competitive side with myself. Like, I had this mission. I wanted to replicate something, and I would practice and practice and practice, and keep drawing and drawing quite late into the night, on my bed until I just kind of mastered, the way that certain things could be represented through a basic pencil and piece of paper. And then I think when my dad was working abroad, and I was really missing him, and one of my art teachers was kind of like, okay, let's do some art, and you can draw about it. And that concept wasn't there before then. So that was quite a new thing. It was like, what I can express my feelings through drawing. And then I kind of, that opened up a whole world of my teacher explaining to me about how artists of the past, were going through stuff, and they would paint this, or, the representation of feeling. And then I was introduced to other things like abstract art and some more of the classical masters, and then a little bit of politics. I mean, I was really young, like how politics, and just she then explained to me about the form of art, like its visual language, and how it contained a message, and that art wasn't just about replication of objects in real life. And then I think when I went to secondary school, my art teacher at secondary school was taught by David Hockney. So he was an apprentice of David Hockney, and then he went on to become an art teacher. So I then had this whole other level of art teacher who was talking about things, just this, like a conceptual world of ideas, and how they can kind of be mutated and then represented into art, and they could be sort of hidden. So colors could be played with, and figurative shapes could be played with, to talk about things that were obvious or subtle. And I just became completely obsessed with what is this world that I've been opened up to? It isn't about just pure skill and talent of replicating image. It's about, I need to bring context, and I need to bring feeling. And then I went a bit crazy with it. Just was okay, exploring the boundary of, just because I'm splashing out on this piece of paper, does that make it good art because it's coming with passion, or does it just look like a splash of paint? And so he kind of taught me about conceptual art and the context of art, and that fine line between things that are just pure expression and things that are then trying to communicate to another. So there's your art that's just for you and for no one else, that you're kind of just splashing out. And then there's a responsibility and awareness that you're expressing something for someone to view. And then I kind of always had this fascination with classical portraiture. So then we did a lot of art history, and although, his strong mentor in his life was David Hockney, so it's pretty abstract stuff. I always had this deep love for, you know, like Michelangelo and like, you know, these real artists that could just, for me, were like masters. They were able to, with a piece of paper or with paint or with pen, they were able to shape like a human body or a human face or form onto a flat surface, and there was a feeling that would come through it. And I would always lean back into that classical, the classical fine arts. I just had this deep love and appreciation for them. And then probably when I was 15, I was introduced to an artist called Susan Sedon-Boulay, and just was completely captured by her work. Didn't really know much about her and what her work meant, but the like the feeling or like the energy of what I was feeling through her work just really, it was so powerful for me. I felt like a real calling to it. So I leant back into my, I guess my earlier foundation, which was replicating to understand, and replicating to feel my way around the journey that maybe that artist had been on. So I kind of just went on this whole journey of really trying to replicate the shapes. She has this unusual profile, which was very long forehead and a very long bridge of the nose, and these very sensual lips, and these very like almost Egyptian eyes, and very otherworldly, the stuff that was going into the background, and then like the space around the actual figure was quite abstract. And I just thought, wow, for me it was like the best of both worlds. I could, you know, see this amazing being or this person, you know, it ticked my classical box. And then there was this otherworldly thing going on, and so I just got into that training of the skill of her type of profile. And then I just went on a journey of just kind of like, I guess the word you use is doodling. So I just really got into doodling, and I began, because I had so much classical training, I had at a very young age, it was just so inbuilt with me. So I knew how to move the pencil to create certain form. And I was still very taken by her work. There was something about it. And so I would sit, you know, when I was 15 or 16 and my hormones are raging and I'm going through my teenage years, and I would sit in bed and feeling, you know, all this angst for the world and, you know, restriction of wanting to be who I felt I was, which was this adult, you know, although I was still in a house looked after by my parents. And it was, so there was this like real anger and this angst and this real wanting to be free. And that was when I first started getting that feeling of like I wanted to express and kind of lash out, you know, what my restrictions in my, I guess, my real world or the world around me. And I began to like really explore, you know, very privately, just in my sketchbooks, like what happens when I draw something very sharply with my pencil. And, you know, I hadn't been, I guess, raised by my teachers to do that, because, you know, it'd been very classical or abstract, but we hadn't really gone to mark making at that point in my life. So I then had this kind of personal journey of what happens if I turn the pencil sideways and I really drag it down? What happens if I turn it on its point and it's very sharp? And I began to just lean into the classical side of, okay, I'm going to explore that with trying it with a, you know, like a profile. So I'm just going to do a side profile of a face. And I liked her work. So I was like, I'm just going to try and draw my own version of her style. And I just went through this process of repeating side profiles, and then you know, like full face profiles, and then, you know, doing the things that you wouldn't usually do in a classroom or a studio because you wouldn't want anyone to see. So I draw these like really sharp jagged, closed eyes, or I'd draw these really beautiful, soft, detailed eyes with pupils. And, you know, I was always very lucky. I was quite adept at drawing the pupil of an eye and it looking very realistic just because of the classical training I had. So, you know, I'd try these very soft profiles and then these very angry profiles. And then I started to add other profiles into so it wasn't just one person. I started to add two people, and then I, you know, was curious about the relationship of two profiles, two people in a painting. And then I started to just draw shapes and spheres and just really kind of just started to explore it. And then I just became very interested in some of her work on shamans and the shape-shifting element of part person, part animal. So some of them would have like tiger stripes or part bird, and I just became fascinated with that kind of fantasy world of the unseen or the spirit world. And then when I was 16 and started to do yoga and meditation, and then I became very aware of the other side of life, like the unseen, that whole other area of life that you know, I'd never really heard anyone talk about. I mean, my dad had talked about, he was amazing and is amazing. And so when I was younger, I could ask him anything. And, you know, what happens when you die and da-da-da-da-da. And, you know, he'd quite clearly say, you know, well, I believe in reincarnation. And so da-da-da-da. And you will go through your life and you will be able to think and feel whatever you believe in. So that other seen or spiritual life, that was the kind of conversation that I had with him about it. But as far as art, I hadn't really explored it. And so there I was, 16, left home on this wild, crazy journey for 3 years, exploring just all kinds of things like a wild child, just like exploring life, and became very interested in the seen and the unseen and where those two worlds meet. And then I became really fascinated with the inside of a person and the outside of a person, and how much of our inner world we let the outside world see. And then I became very interested in how we communicate as humans, as people, and how much of us do we really share, and how do we communicate, and how do we express. And, you know, is what we're saying always honest and what we're really meaning? Or are we kind of feeling our way through life to see if we're accepted and to what degree we can open ourselves and express that inner world? And then I went on to university and had the most phenomenal art mentor ever. And that's when I really came to grips with that I had a real fascination with the psyche, interior space and exterior space of the psyche, and how we are constantly in that relationship of interior and exterior space. We're in a constant relationship with understanding that, so we're understanding what we experience on the inside, to what degree does that play out in our physical life. And I became completely enraptured with spatial awareness and installation art, and just dropped all my drawing and went on my defined route of my honours degree, which was sculpture. So I was a contemporary sculptress, and I absolutely thrived in exploring form on the inside, what I'm thinking, my conceptual ideas, and then how much of that I'm actually sharing. You know, like I know exactly what my idea or my concept is inside, and how am I going to either dilute that or fully express that to others. So I then became very interested in the relationship between artist and the piece of work and the viewer. And that became, you know, a big influence in my work. And then it's really interesting. Then I was picked up by some agents and invited to exhibit internationally whilst I was still doing my degree. So I became the thing or the dream that I'd always wanted when I was 5 or 6. When I was 5 or 6, I wanted to be an artist, professional, exhibiting in London. Just wanted that, just one exhibition in London. And when I was young, I always thought it'd be in my 50s, and there I was, 24, now exhibiting internationally. And it's a very long story, but I then went off, fell in love, moved to North Africa, and walked away from the art world, and didn't paint, draw, or anything for 7 years. And then one day that world turned upside down, and that relationship ended, and for my own sanity, my own kind of self-respect, I needed to, I guess, find myself again, in the sense that I hadn't seen myself. When you're an artist, it's like your work is a way for you to see and understand yourself and feel yourself. So I hadn't seen myself in that respect for 7 years. I'd just been family, mom, wife, lover, like that was my world. That's how I was seeing myself. And I didn't realize how much it had impacted me until, like I say, that world changed. And then I thought, oh God, I need to draw again. So it's kind of like I had to meet myself again. And it was the most powerful experience, sitting and drawing for the first time after 7.5 years. And and it was interesting. The first thing I did was I did a profile, like I had been exploring of the Susan Sedon-Boulay, and I just learned into that, and I learned into the classical drawing again. And then obviously I was going through quite a painful time, so there was no thought about I need to draw my feelings. It was like, I need to bloody draw. I need to just draw. I've got all these tears and I've got all this and I need to get it out. And I'd, over the years, many years, I've been researching and working with children in trauma and crisis and juveniles in prison and women's refugees. And I'd been researching the way that creativity could help with crisis and trauma. And so therefore I found myself in this very traumatic situation, which probably was not traumatic, but to me, my whole world had turned upside down, and it's like, oh my God, and I just had all this pain, all these tears, and I was just like, I need to draw. And it was beautiful, I didn't know at that point where it was going to take me. I was just drawing for myself. So I had this huge canvas and just started to draw this profile. And I actually went and grabbed a couple of books that I had of Susan Sedon-Boulay, and I flicked through them, and I was like, God, give me strength. Like, I need it right now. I need strength, and just help me. Just help me through this time. And I opened a book, opened a page, and it was one of her paintings of Isis. And so I just thought, right, I need to make something pretty. I need to know that it's not gone, my gift hasn't gone, and I can, you need some kind of control in your life. So it's like I needed to feel some kind of control. Even the rest of my life was kind of having to be rebuilt. And so I did this painting of Isis, and the more, I spent about 2 weeks on it, and the more I just got into it, and I started painting her wings, and then as I was drawing her wings and painting them, I was very aware of all the barn owls that I'd drawn when I was really young, and the technique to get the feathers looking like feathers, and just this whole energy went into this painting that was going to be my rock whilst I kind of gathered my strength. And yeah, it was a really, really special painting for me. And then literally a friend came round. She was like, "Who did that?" And I was like, "Oh, I did." She was like, I've never seen you do anything like that. And I, "Oh yeah, I used to do this all the time." And then she said, "I'm just, you know, basically, I've just bought this new premises and I'm setting up a salon. Can you do me some commissions?" I was like, "Okay, what do you want?" And she was like, "The same as that, just whatever comes to you." And I was like, "Well, I got free reign." She was like, "Yeah, these are the colors." And I was like, "Okay." So we went and we basically, I'd done this picture, and the next thing, boom, commissions were coming in. So I'd go measure the space, ask. That's how it happened. It was just like boom, 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 boom. And yeah, so I just started generating these clients, and it was literally people just came in contact with the paintings, and they were like, "I want the same thing," or "I want like," and I was like, "Well, I can't do the same thing." Exactly, but so we discussed the kind of feel that they would want and the colors. So it was always the same thing. They wanted the white and the gold and 22 karat gold leaf and the semi-precious stones and the profile of a person and just this very beautiful feeling and very relaxing and very deep kind of feeling of the paintings. And I mean, when I was very, very young, I was, painting and doing things for people all the time. So that wasn't a new experience, but it was a very new experience to suddenly, in the midst of all this, heartbreak, just to suddenly have this influx of clients that were basically saying, "I don't care what you do, just the same colors, and you just do whatever." I mean, that's like an artist's dream. Like, you just create whatever you want, and there's the money. And so it confirmed for me that was who I was. I was an artist. And regardless of what happened in my life or what would come to happen in my life, that would be my rock. That would be the one thing that, touch wood, hopefully would, could never be taken from me. And yeah, it just opened up this whole other understanding of who I really was, and that, maybe the rug was pulled on my marriage because I wasn't painting. I was just denying that whole side of myself. So yeah, and so over the years, there just became this style that became associated with me, which was the 22 karat gold leaf and the whites and the golds and these kind of very divine paintings. And so yeah, for 12 years, that's what I did. I literally just completed that series of work, and so that was my style, if you like. But I've been drawing profiles and portraiture work ever since I was very small. So, but that gold leaf is probably what people associate me with. So that's how it came to kind of. That's how the style kind of happened.
And it is quite striking, that gold leaf and that feminine, and it just kind of pulls you in. I know every time that you post something online from that series, I'm just like, oh, and the thing is, I've never actually seen them in real life. All I've ever seen is something on a screen, on a phone or on a laptop. So I can only imagine what it would be like to be in the presence of it, and I can just and it makes sense to me why people would be drawn in, because like I said, just from the screen of a laptop or a phone, you are pulled into it. There is a certain magic about what you've created there. I wanted to ask you, actually, in the period of time when you weren't painting, when you weren't doing anything creative at all, did you ever have like moments where you because from me being a musician and singer and going through periods where I'm just not doing that, and having spent so long striving to be and do that, and everything and every move that I made in like the first 20 odd years of my life was all about this goal that I was going for. And then having periods of time when I was just not doing it. Were there not moments where it would tap you on the shoulder? Did you not have pangs, or did it not cross your mind that you were not, there was part of you that you were not servicing, like the greater part of you, the part that draws everyone into you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'd birthed something that had completely blown my brain away, which was my son. So you know, there was this other level of creation happening that just completely was the most beautiful experience, and is the most beautiful experience. As far as being an artist and that tapping you on the shoulder, yeah, all the time. It was hard.
How did you respond to it? How did you kind of meet that need? Did you?
I think when you have a baby and they're kind of like needing your attention 24/7 when they're very young, I think I just kind of suppressed it, just kept putting it on the shelf, which I'm sure everyone can relate to. But I didn't know the damage it was doing to me, to my relationship, to everything. So it just, I mean, it's just bizarre to not even pick up like a pen and a piece of paper. I mean, I can remember, probably the most drawing I ever did in that time, you know, quite honestly, was doodling flowers round and round in circles whilst on the phone to like a utility bill or something like that. You know, that is the only thing I can remember drawing in that entire time. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there was definitely levels where I felt really depressed, and it was just put down to, you know, postnatal depression or being exhausted, being a new mom and stuff like that. And then and so much was happening. I was living in North Africa then, and then I was traveling back to England, and I had my son. So, but I definitely didn't cope with it very well. And I think it's just, you know, like culturally, I just believe that you give up certain things when you have a family. And so I think I just kind of played that out. And then, yeah, I mean, I just wasn't aware that it was almost as if, you know, I'd had my dream fulfilled when I was in my, you know, by exhibiting internationally when I was in my 20s. So that was my dream for me personally. And then it was like, what else did I ever want to do with my life? Oh, I'd love to have a family. So it's like the dream transferred and the energy transferred into creating a family and having a child. And it wasn't till about, you know, 5 years into it that I really started to feel it. Like this just isn't the way life is supposed to be. Oh, I hadn't made the distinction at that point that it was because I wasn't drawing or painting. You know, and it was, you know, I'd have enough signs, so I'd go and I'd be out and about, or I'd go into town and I'd bump into someone and they'd be like, oh, are you still drawing? Are you still painting? Or how's your art going? I was like, I haven't done it. I've been busy with kids. You know, so the universe was trying to provide me a little bit of a hello. But I think I'd got so heavily, you know, that imprint, that cultural imprint. As a woman, you give up things, you know, and we all give up things to settle down and have a family. But I definitely don't believe that now. But at that time, you know, I was young, and I think I was just fumbling through life, just like, okay, I've given that up now because I had my dream. I hadn't realized how it was part of me until I didn't have it, until I, you know, for me it was, you know, I'd hear that thing inside would say, no, that's just nonsense. Now you've done it, and you know, you had your dream. You were lucky you had your dream. Now you're on a different dream. You're dreaming this now, and yeah, it didn't really impact me until about 5 years into it, and then I felt really unhappy. But I hadn't again made the connection. Like, it's ridiculous. I hadn't made that connection.
It's bizarre, isn't it? As well, and it's the thing that feeds you, and it's everything that you are, and yet for some reason it goes away. But then maybe it goes away for you to really appreciate what it does for you when you've got it back. And then when you, like you said, when you started to paint, how it sounds so ease filled, you know, when you created that one painting and then someone's like, okay, then just paint whatever you want and you'll get money. It's like you said, it's a dream life. that most people
and it is very easy to do that if you you know, my passion now is helping other people experience that. You know, it is easy if you just be yourself, who you are naturally made to be. And, you know, we all have our creative, I believe we all have our creative gifts. We all have our each, like yours is music or your voice. You know, some people it's through their hands, it's through sculpting or through painting or drawing. Like we each have our natural creativity. And if you lean into it and you just go with it, it actually just lifts you and it just carries you. And like you say, nourishes you on many levels.
And how, you know, you say you're working now with people to help them discover their creativity. And there's always been this thing of some people are creative people, and then there's other people that go and have real jobs. There's going to be plenty of people who are doing these real jobs that are yearning for creativity or wanting to tap into that creativity. How do you start to help somebody to unfold that creativity and let them understand that it's just, there's no end to it as well? Because I think a lot of the time with creativity, especially with adults, and knowing the work that I've done when I've done creative workshops with adults in particular, are so afraid to just let their creativity just be what it is, as opposed to wanting there to be like a final piece of work at the you know, at the beginning. It's got to be perfect, it's got to be amazing. And how do you work with that? How do you get somebody into that space of trusting and then just allowing themselves to play and allowing there to be and understanding that there is no right or wrong? You know, it's just, it is what it is.
It's a powerful process. I mean, essentially, you know, if you strip it right back, it's because someone's scared to make a mark in the world. So you can strip it right back and you can help people make that mark in the world. But essentially, it's about having a relationship with yourself. It's about getting to know yourself. So you let go of trying to compare yourself to other artists or other forms of creativity. You take your inspiration from whatever ignites you, and you understand that, you know, throughout the context, let's say for art history, throughout the context, there will always be someone that's probably done what you've done. But you might pick up where someone else left off, and you might develop it further, and then you might go as far as you want to go, and someone else will pick that up. So it's like it never dies. Like creativity is weaved through our existence. So it's available to everyone, but ultimately it's about your relationship with yourself, getting to know yourself, where your natural, where your resistance is and where your natural ease is. So, you know, a lot of when I do, like if I'm doing one-to-one with someone, you know, we start very, very simple with a canvas and some paint and a paintbrush, and we're going to make a mark on the canvas. And people are terrified. You know, I'm aware that they're terrified of whether they're going to be accepted. You know, it goes very deep. So it's like, are they going to be accepted in the world? Like, is their place valid? Like, is what they've got to say worth anything? So there's this comparison constantly going on underneath, on the subtle, like in the psyche. It's like, I can't make this mark on the paper because what will she think? What will it look like? What am I going to compare it to? So it's like, you have to kind of blow that up and explain that when you make that mark on that canvas, you're coming into contact with yourself, first and foremost. Everything else can wait. Because that relationship between your hand, your eyes, the paintbrush, that canvas, where they all touch is where you're meeting yourself. You're meeting a part of you that you probably are not aware of. So you're, I guess, like your soul or your spirit or your unseen self. You're connecting with a more whole aspect. So it's almost as if the canvas is like a mirror or a bridge to another side. So as you approach it, the other side approaches it too. So as you move towards it, you come into contact with a greater part of you, like an ancient part of you, your spirit or your soul. And so you're having a relationship with yourself. And the best artwork is always where that relationship is honest. And that relationship is where there's depth there. And so just those words and just that few sentences can help people totally just shift from I don't care what anyone else actually thinks. We've set it up so it's very clear. So it's kind of like no one needs to see this. We can chuck it in the bin. We can paint on it. We can do whatever we want with it. You can keep it. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. What it looks like doesn't matter. It's about the intention. So the intention to meet yourself, a much bigger part of you. We're not really taught about that in Western culture. So, in indigenous tribes, those kind of cultures are raised with the seen and the unseen worlds, and their creativity is very integrated. So they dance and they sing and they body paint, or they go on walkabout, or whatever it is, or whatever they're doing. Their creativity is very integrated and celebrated. Whereas in Western culture, it's very sterile, and it's a cultural thing that it has to be of a certain, it's ridiculous, really. The art world is like, from the outside, you think that art has to be of a certain level, of some kind of, Saatchi gallery level from the get-go. Like any real artist that you speak to is pretty crazy in their process, and they will be splashing paint and they will be exploring. So it's the igniting of that relationship of exploration with yourself first and foremost. You can't do anything if you don't start there. Because if you don't have that courage to meet yourself or to just get to know yourself, then it will always be fake, and it won't have that depth of relationship. That's just my personal understanding of it. Like I feel like good art emanates some kind of language, some kind of something out of it by itself naturally. And I think that it's the energy that's put into it, or it's the depth of relationship that the artist is having with the piece of work. So, for me, whether I'm doing a commission or whether I'm painting for myself, there's still that intensity of relationship going on, because I know that it's about honesty. And as I'm drawing, I can't be lazy. I know that I know how I can draw. So if I'm drawing of a certain style, I know that I need to, it's hard work. You have to focus, you have to concentrate, but it's also very natural. And then if it's someone else, it's kind of like you kind of blow up the whole, you take it to an extreme, you blow up the expectation to the absolute opposite of what they're expecting. So if someone is very tight and they've been working in an office a lot, or they've been trained classically and they've never explored abstract, or they have never done anything like it, but they're getting the craziest feeling that they're supposed to be drawing or painting, you have to go down that initial primal mark making route and kind of getting that foundation, getting it really wholesome and getting some real deep context there of why you're doing it. Like, you know, like really getting deep on that. Like, that, for me, that's my passion, is get the deep container there, get the person feeling safe to explore life with themselves, and they're off. I've seen it so many times. If you get that person feeling confident to explore just for the curiosity of it, they're free. They'll get on with it. There'll always be bits where they come up, and you know, it's natural to want to look round and compare, but you have to keep coming back to that relationship with you, your life, your imprint in the world, your mark in the world, and what you're making. And you literally have to let go of anyone, and you have to go into that space of meeting yourself. It's funny, you know, essentially, if you really, really strip it back, what I've seen over the years is you're talking about life and death and rebirth. And you're talking about people meeting their death. That's essentially what it is, without sounding too, you know, I know in Western culture we don't like to talk about that, but that's what it is. You're talking about what will happen if I express myself. There is something in the psyche that says, will I die? It's to such an extreme fear. What will happen to my existence if I say I'm here? It runs really deep. Whereas if you look at indigenous culture, they are very integrated with life, death, rebirth. They understand that the three stand on the bridge all together where creation is. So as an artist, you're constantly offering yourself, knowing that in each painting you probably will experience some kind of death, whether that's just your idea has to die, or your style has to die, or the painting isn't going the way you bloody want it to, and you know, you have to move it. So you know, and from that comes a rebirth, and then there's just life. So it goes pretty deep. But essentially, you know, when people are really scared of their creativity, they're just not. They just haven't approached what they actually feel about death, and what they actually feel about rebirth, and what they actually feel about life. Because if you go near that realm, it's all there. That's just my understanding of what I've seen. And so, you know, when you're working with people in trauma and crisis, they're in the crisis and they're in the trauma because they're trying to hold on to not dying. So it's, you kind of just ease the situation by giving an outlet for that fear and that stuff to kind of come out. Sometimes you don't have to talk about it, you know, it's being expressed without the words. So they, you know, and it walks people through, you know, if you've been in trauma or crisis, and you go through a series of ways that you can work through that and walk through it. And they go through, you know, a death of letting go of what happened, and a rebirth, and then a new fresh life. So it's I mean, I've been living and breathing this for a long time, so it's kind of like, it's very interesting culturally.
When you were talking about the fear of making a mark on the world, in the world, and being seen, and all of this kind of, what was coming up to me, because artists put themselves out there so much in whatever shape or form, they always face criticism, and a lot of the time by those who are, you know, you have these art critics who are who do they do art? Have they ever done art? Are they what you would call quote unquote failed artists? You know, basically people who have never dared to do, but then they feel that they have a qualified opinion to cast their opinion on someone's work, and then everyone will just follow along with this kind of like renowned critic. It seems like a bizarre job to have. How if you've ever had to handle like mass criticism, how have you dealt with it? How do you then also approach that in terms of the students and people that come to you who fear the criticism?
I've had a bizarre life where I've never really come into contact with it, but I know it exists. I had a very, very critical teacher when I was at secondary school, the one that was taught by David Hockney, and that's the only kind of level that I've ever had it, where he'd be like, "That's not good enough. I know you can do better," and I'd be basically like, "Well, screw you." Like, I was very rebellious, and I knew what I wanted to do, and that was that. So I had quite a strong spirit and strong sense of self. So I guess in some cases you have to be like that. But when I was at university, we would have weekly critiques, and I saw what it did to other people, and it can break people. But that went on for like a couple of months, and then our tutor stepped in and explained to the group what really critiques are, and how to give healthy critiques, and how to deal with a critique that you don't feel great about. So we got educated and trained in constructive criticism, how to give it and how to receive it. And it shifted the dynamics. But he was a phenomenal teacher, and he taught us that's why it's important to have that strong, honest relationship with your work, because then it doesn't matter what anyone says. If you're faking it, it'll break you. If you fake your work, people will pull you to pieces because they can sense it. But if you can establish a very strong connection, and you don't need to know the answers, you don't need to know why you suddenly want to paint loads of blue paintings, or why you suddenly want to run around with a camera and take photos of whatever. Like, you don't need to know the why. You just need to know that something is making you alive from it, and nothing can touch that. The other thing is that art is all autobiographical, so it's only ever you expressing yourself, your journey through life. How people see it, it's like a mirror. How they see it is how they see life. So, like I said, I've been fortunate, I've never really had it, but I've seen it a lot with others. I saw it recently with a friend posting some stuff on Facebook, and people are saying the most ridiculous things, like, what do they call it, trolling?
Yeah.
And I'm like, why would you even do that? Like, if you don't like someone's work, do you need to actually tell them, like, you really don't like it? We need to be kind, unless you're in a situation where, it's a professional critique. Or, like you say, if you're an artist and you're putting yourself out there and people are just being unkind. And, I sat and I watched a thread of people saying all this different stuff. And she's a good friend of mine, and she was just starting to paint again, and she put some work out. And people were saying all kinds of crazy stuff. And, and I'm watching her response, because it's not her natural field of expression. So she's like stepping into that world of, like you say, the art world. And so I'm like ferociously protective. My talons are out, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch. I don't like to see anyone be mean to someone for them creating and being brave and having the courage to express in visual language. So I'm watching what's going on, and then you really notice, like, some people, like, they're just bizarre. Like, some people are actually just bizarre, and they enjoy trying to tear people down. And so I watched her kind of respond to it, and I could feel the moment where she started to retract a little and just doubt, like, should I even be, like, doing this? Like, should I even be? And that was it. I just kind of stepped in and just kind of wrote, the people's responses talk about the people. Art's a mirror. So as an artist, you just have to sit deep in your relationship with your work. There is no right or wrong. And, you know, what you're choosing to explore in your life, if it's got you and it's taken you and it's a passion and you're vibrant and you're not hurting anyone, you're just, you know, creating art for the vibrancy and for the love of it, you need to know that, and you sit in that and understand that culture is a funny thing, and whether you're a musician or an artist, people do feel, I don't know why, but some people, you know, feel very entitled to critique you.
Isn't that
just even without invitation? It's like as soon as you put the work out, there's this weird preconceived idea that it invites immediate critiquing that the artist will actually give a shit about.
It's just bizarre that it's something that happens with anything. I'm trying to think of any other field other than the creative field that people that faces that kind of level of like strip down from people who deem themselves to be qualified or not, you know. And like you say, social media in itself then just gives everyone that secondary armor to kind of like really go in. And I've always wondered about, you know, especially like coming from music and you're always reading these and the power that critics yield as well, especially when, you know, from my side on music, and someone put out an album and they could have spent, you know, the best part of a couple of years of their lives dealing with that, getting stuff together. Any kind of art form is hard. I think I don't know if it comes from a jealousy where people assume that art is easy. Art is discipline, and in order to get to the point where you make it look seamless requires such commitment and dedication and sacrifice, to the point where most people wouldn't even give up that, or even when they start to realize how much work is involved, it's like, well, I don't even know. It's like, you've got someone who's like dedicated hours of their time, years of their lives, to just getting the minutest things so correct and so that they make it look so easy for then someone to come and just kind of put their mouth all over the whole thing. They feel justified in doing so, because I don't know, maybe it comes from maybe there's a jealousy there.
I think it's power. I think it's about power, and I think that if as an artist you know your power and you know your reason for creating, like artists have always been used to project power, whether that's political paintings that describe certain battles and who won, and, you know, like really old paintings, like they were like newspapers in a sense. They would like be like a billboard of, this is really what happened in this battle, but behind the scenes that battle didn't actually finish that way. You know what I mean? So artists have always been used to abuse power to those in so-called power. So I think as an artist, if you look at that context and you understand the power that you have to just put droplets into society or into a culture or just a message, the more you understand it, that you're born a certain way and you have a creative gift a certain way because it's needed at this time. That, you know, things don't, you know, that's why there's so many different art forms. You don't have to have something that's politically outrageous. You can have something that's super beautiful and gentle, because as a culture and a modern culture that's changing, the needs of the culture are changing. So people in society need to be able to see something that reminds them of beauty, or something that's soothing, or something that's of angst. They need to see something where they can relate, so they know that their experience is real. All the bits that are uncomfortable. A lot of artists, if you look at a lot of artists that get put into big galleries, a lot of their work is talking about okay, Yusuf, where, you know, there's big social changes happen and stuff like that. So they've kind of, or there's artists that need to speak about the liberation of the people, or, you know, or there's some artists that will just paint about the relationship between two colors, or the spiritual in art. There's so many different areas of art, and there's always room for new ones. And I think as an artist, you just have to know your power, and the power is not given to you by it being recognized by a top gallery. That the power is never there. You know, that the power of being an artist is that quiet, crazy time that you have with yourself on a canvas. That's where the true power exists. That willingness and that courage to just create something, because your life is your life and it's yours to explore. And so no one can touch that. And it's always been a real fascination of mine, like, who says something is a piece of art? You know, like, who makes that label? Who says something is a good piece of art? I watched it a lot, you know, in my early years of exhibiting. That, I mean, galleries and art exhibitions are very harsh environments if you're not used to them. And like I say, I was fortunate to have good art mentors, so I was educated quite thoroughly in the etiquette, if you like, of gallery spaces, what's expected, how it rolls, how, you know, cutthroat it can be, the business of it, what they're looking for, how manipulative it can be, how beautiful it can be. So I think having that education and etiquette of gallery spaces really helps, because you understand that it's a minefield. I mean, you've got all these different psyches of work up on the wall, and you've got all these different psyches of people walking around, like you say, people that can open massive doors for young artists, declaring what is good and what is not, and what if, oh my goodness, this shouldn't even be in here, this is terrible, you know. Like, it's so cutthroat to that degree. It's, you know, that's the world of art sometimes. But it depends if you're talking about creativity or the industry of art, the world of art, the path of a life of an artist, the life of an artist. Most artists, once they've been doing it a while, switch off to the game of galleries, and they understand the etiquette. And, you know, my heart goes out to to people that may not consider themselves an artist, that are just getting these surges, especially as culture is changing now. There's a lot more people in the younger generation and also the older generation are getting these surges, these spontaneous surges to create, whether that be music or painting or poetry. It's like this, I guess, like you say, like the spiritual side of life is kind of waking up a bit more, and people having these, like, I have no idea, like, why I'm getting this feeling I've got to do this, and I work this job and I can't do this. And, you know, I would always say, you know, get familiar with other artists, get to know artists, and don't be intimidated by artists. And go to galleries, but know that the gallery isn't the be-all and end-all. The be-all and end-all is if you are creative, it's how you're living your life. Because that brings you the deep satisfaction and the deep relationship between you and your work.
That's great, because I think there's always this thing of whether you're a successful artist, whether you had a creative life by it, I suppose it depends on whose standards you're judging it by. And like I say, if you're the person who's creating, you just, the sheer joy of like having that seed of an idea, and then suddenly it becomes something that everyone can experience. That in itself, most people who are creative would happily do it all day long if money wasn't factored into the world somehow, and we had to kind of incorporate, getting coins for the things that we need to pay for.
I mean, there is an easy way to structure creativity so you can live and breathe it and it becomes your livelihood. That part of I guess that the structure is something that like the galleries like to hold on to, and they don't like to share that structure for their own reasons. But the structure is very, very easy if to start with. If you are creative and you have like a normal 9-to-5 job, and say for example, if we talk about painting, the easiest way to do it is to not set yourself like because I'm a very practical person trying to help people as well. So it's important to me that people feel that it's accessible, that success is accessible for them. So from a very, very practical place, I would say to anyone that's getting that urge would be, don't go out and spend a lot of money on the most expensive, like for example, paints and canvases, because you will set yourself up for such a fall. Because you will be expecting on a subtle level to make your return on that somehow, whether you're aware of it or not. You will want to justify the amount of money you've spent, so you will set yourself up so badly. So choose, for yourself what you feel comfortable working with. Go out and get just some watercolor paper or some canvas and some student quality paints and explore ideas. If you get to a place where there's something that you really like, don't ever put it out into the world until you feel happy about it. Because people pick up on that straight away. And if you don't feel happy about it, it'll really rock your confidence. And so once you're happy about it, it doesn't matter what anyone else says. And then if you want to progress from there, there's plenty of Vistaprint is quite good. I like Vistaprint. As a way to direct people if they want something that's really standard and not too expensive, to just try out ideas. You can upload, most people have phones these days, so you can just upload a photo from your phone of a little painting that you've made, and you can get like some postcards of it sent to you. You can see then what it looks like in a different form, or you can make some little greeting cards and you can send them out to family and friends, or if you feel comfortable, you can approach little shops and see if they'll take them. I think people think that they need to they make this piece of art and then they need to kind of like go for a London gallery straight away. It's like, my God, you don't want to do that. You wanna get to know it. So, make the cards, make the little greeting cards. You'll be very very surprised that lots of clients that I coach, are saying, try that. And then someone saw one of my cards and now wants a commission. Fantastic. Oh my God, I've got to do a commission. There's nothing wrong with doing a commission in your spare time, building it up slowly and, then transferring the amount of time that you're doing your work. You just balance it out, and then when you're ready to, you can just take a final leap, or you can just stay doing the 9 to 5. But it's just being gentle with yourself and having a bit of fun and exploring it. And I know people will be like, well, if we haven't got much money, you can't really have fun. It's a very privileged thing to say, to just go and have fun when you need to make money back. I would say just make do with what you've got, household paints, or just go and buy a sketchbook, and some pens, and start to draw from nature or draw from other images that inspire you. Upload them onto, like a bog standard website, and get, maybe spend £5, get some postcards printed out, or get a greetings card printed out, and see how it feels. And then, it's almost like stages. You build yourself up and you prepare yourself, and you get to know yourself and your work, because the last thing you want to do is approach a gallery if you don't know what your work's about and why you're doing it.
Mm.
So again, it's about the relationship between you and your work. And but it's very easy to structure your creativity.
And are you noticing, especially with the changes that are happening in the world, especially with the changes that are happening for women, as there's women are now kind of finding more of a voice and a power and being heard and expressing themselves, and being accepted as such. It's early days and shaky days. Have you noticed any change in your work? Do you feel compelled to like switch your work? Do you feel that there's a level of almost like activism in the work that you're doing now, or that there needs to be?
It's completely changed.
Yeah.
It's completely changed. Like, I had to make a big decision to kind of like stop the series of work, or that collection, or that style of work I was doing for the last 12 years. And I had an experience where I nearly died twice, and a year and a half ago, and then 2 months after that experience, I had a very profound dream. And in the dream, and a lot of my ideas throughout all my life, for different ideas for art installations and paintings and stuff, they come to me sometimes in dreams. So I had this very powerful dream of this exhibition, and I mean, it was so detailed, and this new style of work and what it was about. And I kind of like, I needed to integrate that bit. And then after a few months, I was like, oh God, everything's changing. This is why I'm still here. I need to do this. And my noticing that all of my work had been quite feminine, and it had been a lot of my own process of healing and my journey as a woman. And I loved the Greek goddesses and the female psyche and, all that kind of stuff. It suddenly just changed from that dream to I want to work with men. It was so, so strong. And I need to completely just almost free reign and just go abstract again like I was years ago, and just paint with men. Basically, because, I'm all about women being empowered and giving room for that initial rage that come, and women get a sense of their power and that initial rage and the frustration that they've had to hold it in for so long. So I'm all about that, but I feel culturally we've got enough people now that have, like red tent spaces and women's groups, and, lots of amazing, amazing teachers for women. So I feel like culturally, we've got that container culturally is being held from all the amazing, incredible people in the world that have dug deep and done their work, and they're able to hold the space. So I feel like we're in a good place. Like culturally, women are ready. They got access to a lot more than they used to have, and they're ready. And then I kind of just watched men go, what's our role now? And so I just had this really inspired dream about working with women as muses and working with men as muses, and bringing those two forces together and seeing what artwork could be created between men and women. So I'm working on a brand new art project that is called The Passions of Yin and Yang, and it's me working with 8 men, and abstract painting, performance painting, and watching what happens if we don't have sex together and we allow that natural friction and natural passion between an embodied man and an embodied woman and you know, all the dialogue, the cultural dialogue that's going on and that needs to go on about so many things between women and men. Just kind of like, I want to use that arena of painting to get up by the canvas with a man and respond as an empowered woman, but also give room for the man to express how he's feeling culturally and in response to me. And like I say, the natural sexual tension between men and women, that needs to change. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, my project and the research that I'm doing right now through the project is looking at men and women as modern day muses and our responsibility as empowered men, as empowered women, and moving out of that kind of 80s culture and moving into more of a respectful place, but also not denying the passions that are there. And just, you know, I'm interested in what happens when men and women don't have sex together and they kind of let that space open up a bit more. And there's a whole other landscape for men and women to communicate. Because, you know, culturally we tend to just jump in bed. Like a huge percentage of the culture does that. So I just, as far as the activism part of it, I just want to bring that to modern culture and bring a new creative culture in, which is like men and women can find peace. We can find peace together, but we can also create together. And there is a way. And there are men, good men out there that want to create with women. And there are women that are at a place where they can create with men. And wouldn't that be like a phenomenal culture? if there was peace, you know, being explored and creativity being explored between the sexes, because we are made different. And so that's my thing at the moment. That's what I'm passionate about at the moment. And I think it was a shock for people to see my work style change. But, you know, again, it comes back to that thing of this is where I'm called. This is where my passion and my relationship with my work is. So, and I don't know, Carol, you know, it might not be well accepted. It might not be appreciated. You know, when people see it, they might just not like it. But I know in myself that it's important work to do and explore. So even if it's for future generations, you know, or even if it's just something I need to do, I want to do my bit to help modern culture and just bring a bit of peace in. And I mean, the work's very passionate. It's not peaceful. It's very, very passionate.
I can't wait to experience that. That's for me. It's like I don't, you know, what is good or bad? Does art have to be like a painting of a bowl of fruit, or is it where someone has just thrown the paint, but there's like the purpose to it, of on the canvas, and just is it just kind of noticing how it lands, or and because it's something that I truly don't really understand, it's something that I highly appreciate. Anything that I don't understand the workings of it, I'm highly appreciative of it, because I have a friend who's an artist, and I see how he does these massive canvases, but then he goes back and he's got books where he'll be studying how to draw a finger, and he'll fill books and books and books of just working it out. How's he going to do that, and how's going to do that? And then when he's doing the actual piece, the size of the finger on this piece in relation to the whole thing, it's like you wouldn't notice, but he knows, you know.
Incredible.
And like understanding his dedication to getting it right, or knowing that he can do it in a way that makes it feel right. It's like I take my hat off, you know, to any part of it, and it's just an appreciation of someone's willingness to be bold and have that passion and the discipline that it takes to kind of bring it there, and the years that it takes to make it look so quote unquote easy, because at the end of the day it never is. It's like, do you ever know when you need to step away from a piece? It's like, when's it finished? For yourself, it's like, do you keep going or do you just kind of leave it unfinished? And at the end of the day, who would know anyway, because it's your work.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, like, it's an incredible language to speak, It's like we don't fully understand it. That's why it has mystery, and that's why it has there's something about it. And so for some of us, visual language is more natural than speaking or writing. But yeah, we're trying to say something. We're trying to express ourselves, and yeah, it's a lot of people don't see the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it, and the costs that go into it, and the not knowing if I mean, you don't know whether a piece is going to be sold or not. You don't know if it's going to be liked or not. But it doesn't stop us. It's like breathing. We just, we're crazy. We're obsessed with it. We have to keep going with it. It's like, this is why we're alive. And some people aren't appreciative of it. Some people see it as a waste and an indulgent thing to do. And, but like a lot of great musicians and great artists over the time were completely taken by their work. You can't explain it to anyone. You can't explain that feeling, that knowing that you have to do this, because it sounds crazy, but it's like a gift of love. You're gifting just something that you know how to gift. It's like, that's your way to give a present. That's it's like if you were thinking about what would be the best way to give a Christmas present to someone, and you didn't really have any money. Like, for some people, it might be, I'll sing them a song, or I'll draw them a little, picture. Like, it's like that. Some people think that artists are like completely self-obsessed and conceited, and I mean, some of them are. It's like you have your variety of everything through society, but visual language is trying to communicate something, and it is a language form of its own, and we're trying to talk about relationship. We're trying to talk about big stuff.
Yeah.
So carry on.
No, what I was going to say is like to have a level of self-obsession is not really such a bad thing sometimes.
Not at all, and yeah, totally. And culturally, we're not brought up like that. We're not brought up like that at all, are we?
No.
We're brought up to not do those crazy, wild, creative surges. It's like, behave yourself. Don't do that. Fit into the norm. So I have a lot of respect for poets and musicians and other artists. I mean, if we didn't have them, the world would be pretty boring, I think. Because we are always pushing the edge and the boundary of what's accepted. We're putting ourselves out there to say, don't be scared of yourself. Because there's this whole world inside of you that culture doesn't talk about. So, we explore that and we talk about that, and we talk about taboos. For most artists, we don't think about that. We just have this crazy idea, or we get inspired by the colors in a sunset. We're like, oh my God, that color's so beautiful. Or for me, nowadays, it's definitely watching society and how it's changing, and that then just impacts me, and I respond to that. So it's kind of like, so I might see all this like lots of empowered women stuff going on, and men not knowing what to do, and I don't know the solution for that, but I'm always trying to bridge stuff. So it's kind of like I'm trying to create some kind of communication or kind of relationship between something Like I want to express and I want to bring people together. So like the latest, project is kind of, hey guys, I have something to say about this. Why don't we just try this? Why don't we just try and see what would happen? And that's why I feel passionate to help other artists. That's why I'm creating my own art gallery. And it's this thing of like, why don't we just see if we try things a different way? Because change is happening. It always is happening. And what have we got to lose? We can just try it. Unfortunately, a lot of the mass of culture has lost their curiosity or has lost their trust in exploration and curiosity. And then you have this cultural awakening of like the spiritual happening. And then a lot of people get lost in how to integrate that, because once you wake up that kind of side of your life, it's like it wants to, like you said before, like it's never ending. So it's like, if people have a creative outlet, they'll find that their energy balances. And I've seen it over the years. If people don't express their creativity, it can sort of combust inside, and they become quite poorly, or they become unhealthy in different ways. And so I think it's about expressing your creativity, expressing your ideas, and letting all that spirituality come back down through the body and be expressed through the body, basically.
So good.
It's a big subject.
And we should tackle it bit by bit.
Yeah, definitely.
That's perfect. And there are questions that I like to ask everyone in the podcast as well. And one of the first of the closing questions I wanted to ask you is, what is the best piece of advice a woman has ever given to you?
Believe in yourself. That was the best piece of advice I was ever given by my art teacher when I was 7 or 8. Believe in yourself and trust in yourself. Simple as that. When I was drawing. Yeah.
And it's nice to have someone tell you that at that age as well.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
They dropped it in at the right time when things are starting to go the other way. It's great.
Yeah, I appreciate I've had quite an unusual, supportive art, influence. My life has been pretty diverse and wild as well, so I've seen many different things, but that stayed with me. It kept some kind of magic alive, and it empowered me. Another thing that she said that stayed with me was to practice. Just keep practicing, and sometimes it comes with time. Sometimes it just clicks in a moment. So that's probably that stayed with me, what she told me. Believe in yourself, trust yourself, and to practice. And sometimes it takes time, and sometimes it just clicks straight away. Yeah.
That practice one, I remember that. Those scales.
It's so true, though.
It's out of everything. At the end of the day, it is one of those things. It is all about practice, and practice sometimes can be really, really, really dull. But when I think of when you're just playing these scales up and down, or doing these, like in my experience, like playing these scales, like what for, why, and then you get a piece of music in front of you that's really tricky, but your hand then just starts turning. And you're like, that is why I was doing that all the time, and it just becomes so easy. But I just thinking about the practicing, I remember it was my friend who was teaching this young girl, and she reminded me so much of me at her age. She was like kind of 6 or 7, and she had like her hair parted in 2, and she had her little glasses on, and we were just like kind of watching her play this piece of music. And there was this point of time coming up, and she was playing it so well, and I could see like a couple of bars ahead there was this part of music, there's this little bit that was coming up that she was going to have to navigate and make a hand movement that was only going to, it's like if she knew what she was doing, she was going to do it, and she did it, and she just did this movement with her fingers, and we just looked at each other and we're like,
incredible.
Is in front of us. It's like, it's one of those things that most would stop and go like, how do I get my hand from there to there? And she just and you're just like, you got that at 7? Oh my god. I was like 14, it's those things that you say, sometimes it drops in and sometimes it just takes the grind and the grind and the grind of it. So
and there's definitely some kind of like something else, some kind of magic in creativity. You know, I don't know if you felt it, but I've definitely felt it, like something just clicks. Like you haven't done anything different, but something just clicks. And it's just pure magic. It's just like something that's so much bigger than what's presented in front of you. Like when you see someone playing a piece of music like that and it just takes your breath away. How I love the word you said, like navigate. Like another thing someone said to me years ago was, how you approach your painting is how you approach life.
It's true though, isn't it? It's how you do one thing is how you do everything. And even those days of like sitting down and sitting in front of the piano and doing that half an hour that feels like forever when you're a child. Just doing this whole, but the thing is, once you get into the groove of it, then you sit there for hours and hours. But then that discipline, that ingrained discipline, that I can see how it's brought a tenaciousness to me and a stubbornness about certain things that I will sit things out until I get it right. But if you it builds in you, I think, those disciplines of like people who do art or who do like music or who do sport as well, and what it takes to kind of get your body into a groove where it becomes natural. It just kind of it feeds into your life, and your approach to it is kind of universal in terms of that discipline that it builds in you. But it's
so true. So true. Like those levels of respect, like when you see another that's achieving something, or that, you know, like you say, the hard work that's gone into it, or that's why, you know, when you talk about the critique thing, that's why it's really important to get that respect for all the hard work that you put in yourself. You know, because not that you need to prove it to yourself, but just it stretches your values and deepens your values and appreciation for yourself and the journey that you've gone through to get there. You know,
more than anything.
We've had that discussion before. Like, some people don't know the journeys that you've gone through to get to certain places or produce certain things, but you know, and it doesn't matter what anyone says about it, because you're just glad that you're alive and you made it through that, and you know, you're still creating, you're still here, and you're still producing stuff. But there's definitely some kind of current that respect and that discipline, it kind of like clicks you into. There's like a creative current, like, or the creative zone.
The flow state.
It just clicks in, and
I think those are the moments. That's probably what keeps creatives just doing it, for those moments when you get into flow, because it's something that you can't explain. You can sort of explain it, but then unless you've been in it and had that state where everything comes together and all the hours and all the years and all of it just kind of lines up and makes it so sweet, and just you might not get that one again for a long time, or you might come close, or you know, there are moments that I remember performing things, like even performing in my flat. One of the flats I used to live in had the best acoustics, but I always had to wait until my flatmate went out for the front room, and I was just like singing this song, and I've never done it since, and I can recall that moment to this day, where it was just like this transition from I don't know how I did it. It was almost like it wasn't me, but it was just like there was no effort, and it was just like that kind of like, this was over 10 years ago, and I can still remember that kind of, it's just that effortless being in the song.
Something big happens, doesn't it? Something big, you experience. Like, I always feel like, and it's true, sometimes you can have it once in your life, sometimes it might not come for 20 years, sometimes it can come a few times. Something just clicks, and there's this this bigness that happens, and it's like, holy moly, I'm alive to a whole other level. Every part of me is huge, and I am just living and breathing life. I am living. It's like a wholesomeness of being alive that you don't necessarily get to experience every day. And you're right. Maybe we're totally addicted to that.
It must be, or just like searching for that next morsel. It's like, do I have to wait another decade for that? I will literally always remember the flat and exactly where I was standing when it happened. I just
Precious,
absolutely remember it, and that was just like so long ago. But it's, you know, to recall that moment, it's good, because sometimes you don't always remember like those moments of like complete. Where it all just kind of lines together, and it's like, this is why, you know.
I think it's definitely some kind of experience that you have, and like I definitely feel like once you've had one of those experiences, like you say, sometimes you forget about it, but for quite a while you'll kind of want to express about it in your work. It's like once you know, maybe you do go hunting for the morsels of it afterwards. I mean, there's something bigger, isn't there, that exists, and we meet it, and you can't explain it. There's just some kind of meeting happens, and I always feel like you kind of dissolve, but you're alive in every molecule of the entire room and everything. It's just a very profound experience.
Gosh, I remember it to this day, and past, and talking about higher energetic resonance, which female do you think represents higher energetic resonance? It's probably along the lines of what we're describing.
You know, I'm going to have to say Guru Jagat. I mean, how can you not go through what we went through, and you know, our 6 or 7 months with her, and like she lives and breathes and walks it. You know, I think that embodiment of, I love the word that you said, navigating, and I feel like she embodies that that higher energy resonance, and she navigates, and she helps others navigate through. As far as artists, it's hard.
Yeah, it's a terrible question. I'd hate to answer it. I don't think I, because I did like an intro episode at the beginning of the series, and I think I just skirted around it, going, well, it's my series, I'm not going to answer that. But
okay, so who do you think, like right now, who would you say?
Personally, for do you know what, I always go, if it's a singer, I always go back to Anita Baker.
Beautiful.
You know, and there are so many other, it doesn't take away from the other singers that I think are like amazing, that have amazing voices, and have you know, there's I've got a list of singers that I'll listen to that have very different voices, and very you know, some of them have got these kind of big, like kind of like trilly high Mariah Carey, like spans the octaves. Then others are just like deeply resonant, and others have got like barely any range, but they are able to express through like the 5 or 6 notes that they're available to them. But the thing that always gets me about Anita Baker was when I started to listen to her, it was just like I felt that I understood what being in love was.
Oh, I love that.
Because she just had this, the way that her voice came in, and the way that she just kind of wrapped it around the words that she sang, her phrasing, where her voice sank. And then on top of that, it was the way that she presented herself in terms of what she wore, the way that she moved when she was on stage. And then around that was like the instrumentation and the production of her music. Because because I'm the kind of person that will sit down and listen to one tune like a million times and listen to every single instrument individually to find out what they're playing and how it all fits together, because the music was just so rich, it was so nuanced on a level that is not even, you don't really hear it that much. And I like a lot of modern music. I'm not going to be like, music ain't what it was. It isn't. It's different. But the thing about Anita Baker's music was it was, there were just so many subtleties in the chords.
I love that.
Because you know, the music now, there's like 3, 4 maybe, sometimes you might even hear 5 notes in the chords, whereas with her, and then there'll probably be only like 4 or 5 transitions during a song that will repeat themselves round and round again. If you listen, when I listen to Anita Baker's production of the songs, there's just the way that the chords will kind of ebb and flow would almost be like, it's almost like it reminds me of being massaged. You know, when
I was just getting like the words heavenly.
yeah, you know when someone can press different like acupressure points and you're just like,
oh, like soothe you.
Ooh,
Yeah.
it just lets you move in like a certain way because it comes at this, and then they'll just kind of do like a slip into a transition that will just be like highly unnecessary, but it takes the song and it just shows that everyone who plays there is so highly skilled and so highly in tuned, and that's what I love about Anita Baker. There is none higher than her in my eyes as a female artist.
It's really interesting because you helped me actually realize something. Like, I have two female artists that are like of that. When you talk about like that, like what it's like to be in love, you know, like that. That's one is Beatrice Wood. My God, she's like if there was one like art heroine or hero or whatever you want to call it, she's mine. She's just like everything about her and her work and the way she played with like pottery and the alchemy of the pottery and her understanding of who's really in control of the actual making of the piece of art. Like, you know, she would say like she'd open up the kiln and she wouldn't know like which pieces would be broken and what magic had been formed by some, you know, that mystery of something that actually does create the art. Like, she's just like the person that's kind of like orchestrating so I adore her. She's like my number one. And then my number two, if I'm allowed a number two, would be Barbara Hepworth. Hepworth, I love her work. Her work's really sublime. And I've been to her studio, a garden studio, and a studio down in St. Ives, and it was just a phenomenal experience for me. And so I love what you say as well about Anita Baker, like the subtlety. Like, I think, if anything, like, that's one thing that, like, the creative, you know, like the creative world, like, it speaks about beauty and subtlety. I mean, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's very raw, but that real sublime beauty that you can get through music or through a piece of art, it's just like, it just hits another level of life. Another level of experience that's not mundane, and it's very divine.
And I think it's respectful of the details as well. It's I always like to just like listen and go, they've thought of everything. They've thought of every little thing that is, you know, you're just listening to. I think, like, if I'm talking about, I used to listen to a lot of Timbaland, producer, is it? No, Darkchild, actually, more so Darkchild than Timbaland. Not that I don't like, but he, and especially when he did like the last album for Michael Jackson. And I used to love to listen to music in good pair of headphones and just really get lost into the depth of it. And the thing that I really liked about Darkchild, he would bring in one kind of sound that it would turn up once and you would never hear it again in the entire tune.
Beautiful.
And you wouldn't even, you know, unless you had either amazing speakers or headphones on, you wouldn't even hear it. So it was placed there totally unnecessarily. You know, but it would just come in and it'd just be like, what that? And then you're waiting, so you count, like, okay, you count a bar, you count 4, you count 8, you count 16, you wait for it in the next verse, and you realize you know, he put it in there one time. And the thing about music, and when you're mixing it, that's where people can spend years sonically shaping a sound, because it's not just about the one sound, it's where you place everything else around it. So in order to put just one thing there, the amount of work that it takes to just put that one thing in there for a split second is respectful of that as well. So I like details and people who put a detail there that most won't even notice.
Yeah, I mean, I totally feel you. I mean, like, it's so true, like the quality, like the quality of the arts. Like, I adore that world, and like this refined kind of subtle communication and language, and, you know, I speak for myself, but because I can't speak for every single artist, but most artists do think, you know, whether that's a painter or a musician or a poet, we think about everything. You know, like once we get an idea and we're, like you say, we're trying to shape it and we're trying to form it, and there's this rich, deep quality going on, like we want to present something that, well, you know, you have your, you know, because you're a creative person as well, like you have like your standard.
Yeah.
Don't you? You have like your standard of, it's about honesty again, like you can stretch yourself or you can give something this or that, but we are a bit perfectionist, even if the pieces that people see, they might think, well, you know, a 5-year-old painted that, but you know, more in the abstract forms, but you know, like we are perfectionists, like we work our socks off to kind of articulate and refine this kind of quality of something. You know, like there's something that we're trying to like communicate. So I love that. I love how you share that, because it definitely, you know, reminds me of like the quality or some kind of refinement in that.
And why would you not want to? I mean, I know that you say like there are people who don't care, but then maybe they're not artists and their intentions are different. But I'm always looking towards those ones who just kind of like, who carve it, who just come up with the, you know, the just listening to stuff, and just, you know, when I put the headphones down, or when I just stop listening to it, and I'm just like, wow. Okay, you know, it's like, am I gonna get there in this lifetime? Because you realize how much work has gone into it, and it takes a long time, and you're like, you know, I've wasted so many hours of the day not practicing, because I'm never going to get to that. I'm an amazing jazz pianist in my head. Fantastic, but I've not put the work into play as well as I improvise in my mind. It's just it's that level of playing and practicing and then letting go. And jazz, I just think, is the highest form of music.
But then don't you think that, like, you're stretched to where you want to grow into, you're not experiencing your impact of that? So for example, someone else might listen to that and be like, wow. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's that other journey that happens with our creativity, where we are constantly like stretching and growing and knowing where, you know, we hear or feel that sensitivity of what we're growing into. But sometimes we're not aware of the impact of our work, like how powerfully it can impact others.
Yeah.
You know, like, we're over it. Like something we made, like, you know, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, like, we're so in a different place.
Yeah.
And we're stretching and we're exploring and we're fascinated with that. And someone comes into contact with a song or a piece that we've made some years ago, and they're like, oh my God. And we don't ever get to experience the impact of our own work. It fascinates me. We get to see a little bit of how people respond to it, but we can never fully experience like the impact.
Maybe
we just don't.
I don't know. Maybe that's what keeps us kind of moving forward. Otherwise, we'd just stay and bask in the glory of that one hit, whatever it would be. You know? or get too trapped to move forward as well. You know, it's. I think
the beautiful thing about the arts is that they represent life. That's how I see it. So there's various degrees of art, from very refined art to very raw, gritty art. That's life. You know, it's like music. There's something for everyone. So, you know, yes, we're all perfectionists and we're all constantly developing our gift and our way to communicate. But for anyone just starting out, there's always someone out there that it can touch.
Yeah.
It's like so many people are put off because they haven't peaked at a certain professional level with it, so they don't even show anyone. My grandfather, he was an artist, and he didn't let anyone know, and they found loads of paintings under his bed when he passed. Only his wife and close family knew. And a phenomenal portrait painter. And that's quite in the 50s and the 60s and in the 40s, and I guess earlier on, that was quite normal. People would hide their creativity, wouldn't they? And then people would become famous after they passed. And now it's just different. It's just
Get it out.
I mean, different world.
Yeah, and it's great that we're moving into ours. It'll be interesting to see once more people start to be creative and just feed into their creativity without it having to have any level of accolade for it to feel valid. It's just that you made this thing, you did this, and that in itself, when everyone's doing that, how it will be. I dream of these things.
I think like the children that the younger children, they're more emotionally intelligent, and they need different ways to express. So I think there's I see it, there's a knock-on effect. Like culturally we're changing, and they need that. They need these different subtle ways to communicate.
Great. And here's another question. Name your favorite self-care ritual or practice. How do you look after you?
My favorite. Nothing beats a candlelit bath. Nothing. Yeah, that's something that just having some candles and having a bath. I like to do that. And then my self-care is Kundalini yoga. That just nourishes me and keeps me that kind of just keeps me just helps me feel balanced and healthy, and it just gives me the confidence in myself to keep trusting the ideas and intuition that I have, and just gives you a little bit of energetic field so you don't get bombarded by life. So that those are my own personal ways that I take care of myself. They're very simple. My Kundalini yoga practice, so I just do that every evening. I'm supposed to do it in the morning, but I do it every evening.
As long as you get it in.
Yeah, I mean, it's always worked for me like that. It's just, I like to do it in the evenings. I like to just do it, switch off from the world, and then go to bed. And and I guess painting. I can't deny it now. So that will always bring me back to who I really am.
That's perfect. And what's next for you? What's on the horizon? What are your projects?
I got a lot going on. I am just about to launch a new private art gallery, because I've always been, helped and supported and had many amazing doors open for me. I know the industry inside out, and I want to take on 4 artists for a year and represent them online and help them create their own client base, varying artists from different walks of life, different professional backgrounds, and the main thing for me is that the social status of an artist or the financial status of an artist is not my concern. The art they're creating, if I see something in that art that speaks to me and is alive, and I get a sense that they are creating from a space that's authentic and honest, and they don't have a clue where they're going, or they do have a clue where they're going, but there's some kind of passion happening in their work, then that's who I'm looking for. And so I'm taking on 4 artists for the first year, and then this year I'll start to, I'm actually going to start to visit degree graduates exhibitions and start to just keep an eye out for young or old up and coming artists that have something particular that are just really passionate about helping people with the structure. To just give them that good platform to just to get some representation online and open up my client base and the collector base that I have to them, because that, you know, it's nice for the collectors to see different types of work. It's nice for the clients to see, you know, other fresh work. So I feel, you know, I want to be quite generous with that. And like I say, I'm working on a incredible project, Passions of Yin and Yang, a painting project, painting performance, film and photography project with 8 men. We'll be working on that all of this year, and been invited to exhibit that in Notting Hill when it's done. And that will actually get, the whole project is being documented and formed also into a book, because it's a hefty project and it's important. And I am writing my first book called Muse. I haven't really told anyone about this. Dun, dun, dun.
Thanks for the exclusive.
The exclusive. Dun, 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 dun. So yeah, I've always had this fascination and this love for Greek mythology and the Muses, and also my classical art interests and training and teaching, and just very, very interested in the Muses. And so I've explored lots of their myths and stuff like that. And then I just came to this place where, especially in the Men's Grace training that we were on, that I kind of have to admit the fact that I embody some kind of energy of the Muse, so I'm here to inspire. So it's just a book about my journey of being a woman, being a mother, being an artist, you know, being a muse, what that actually means. And it's kind of like the stepping stone of coming out of all my 22 karat gold leaf work and coming out of that near-death experience, and the stepping stone between all of that and this big new project with the men. And I had to go on my own journey of understanding what it is to inspire people, my role as an artist, my journey as an artist, and that maybe, just maybe, I've been living and breathing as a muse. And what if that were to be true? And what if women are muses? So that's the kind of like, that's what that book's about my journey of understanding what a muse is and understanding what it is to be a woman and a woman's power as a muse, and culturally what a muse can bring to modern society. And then obviously that's what naturally led me into contemplating, what if men were muses too? Oh my God, if I'm a female muse, I want to work with some male muses. So that's kind of like what's happening. So I'm just taking my time with that book. That'll probably come out, I would think, maybe, I don't know, should I commit to a date? Maybe like December. I think that'll come out. Maybe November, December, just before Christmas, that book will come out. Because, you know, I'm still writing it now. And there's some other things that, you know,
secret projects.
Well, you know, there's talks of, you know, I'm creating an online art school to help other people really get into their creativity and just share, you know, a lot about the techniques and the structures of how to make, you know, classical paintings, portraiture, life drawing, abstract painting. Also has an area in that which is about creative career. So there's lessons on how to develop as a professional artist, or if someone's just coming into it. You know, so I just want to gift forward all my wisdom, and then some lessons of art history, and then some interviews with other artists. A lot going on. So I don't know when that's going to be ready to go, but right now it's just all about gifting forward. You know, like there's no point in holding all this knowledge in. And I really, really passionately from my heart want to support and help other artists, other creative people get to know their creativity. You know, if that happens, and I get to do that, great. You know, in this life, and if not, then you know the intention is there to, I guess, just let people know that it's safe. It's okay to express yourself, and there is different ways, and there's appropriate ways where you can weave your feelings and your emotions and anything you want to say into a beautiful painting. There's you know, it is a language within itself, and so I just want to. That's my passion right now this year, is to just get these things launched out there into the world, so people have access. I'd hate to think of people at home like telling themselves that they can't, like, or there's no place for them to do that, or they can't pursue it, or I'm talking about people that of all different ages, that are from all different walks of life. The struggle is the same, whether it's someone in inner city or whether it's someone very privileged. Like, in human nature, the struggle is the same. So that's my only prayer, that it's there so people know that it's safe, and there is ways to, it's really good to express yourself.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
It's so healthy.
Why would you not?
It's like, so I think when you've seen a lot of trauma and crisis, and you've seen how when it's not dealt with, how the human psyche spirals down, and it's heartbreaking to see what can happen. And so if I have all this wisdom and knowledge that I was so fortunate to be gifted, like I said, like from such young age all the way through, it's like my heart's desire is just to, in some way or shape or form, bring structure to the things that I know, and gift them out into the world and make them accessible. So I'm just trying to communicate at the moment, through everything I do, that it's okay to express, it's safe to express. There are ways where you can find appropriate ways to express through color. Color's so beautiful. Like, you can just, there's so many beautiful ways to express without hurting another person. So I'm all about that.
Perfect. And how can people connect with you? Where can they find you online?
I am just about to launch the art gallery. The website is www.somaartgallery.co.uk. So if you want to see like that private art gallery and what that's about, you can go to that. I'm also just in the middle of rebranding, but you can find me on www.aquarasoma.com. Ta-da!
Perfect.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing such a beautiful talk about creativity and being part of her conversations as well. It's always fun for me to just speak to so many different women and find out what they're doing and their skills and their service and their gifts and their outlook and their vision. It just makes me feel kind of really warm and happy. And today I've had a day where I've done like 2 big interviews, but it was knowing that it was going to be quite a lot, but just kind of at the end of the day just going, that was a good day. Thank you for making today a good day by speaking to me.
Thank you. Your work's phenomenal, and you're phenomenal. And yeah, I mean, it's a good feeling, isn't it, knowing that you did some good in the world, and that maybe somehow it may just reach or touch someone that really just needs to hear it right now.
I hope so.
Yeah. Amazing, thank you.
Thank you again, Aquara, for joining me on Her Conversations, and thank you for listening. If you want to find out more about me, you can find me on my website, carolmaywhittick.com. That's carolmaywhittick.com, and I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram under Casmic, CAZMICK. Thank you, and I look forward to being with you in the next episode. Thank you and bye.